As I walked down the path to our condo, following my wife, I shook my head. As I approached the door, she slammed it right in my face. I sighed and turned to go back to the car. As soon as I reached the end of the path, I heard her screams again. "Where the hell are you going?" she shouted. "We haven't finished talking yet." "Connie, you slammed the door in my face," I said calmly. "I just thought I'd go back to the studio and work on the photos I took this afternoon. That way you can calm down and I can get some work done." "I don't need to calm down," she hissed. "I'm quite normal. You have problems. You let that bitch rub herself on you. Do you think I didn't notice? She rubbed her breasts on you and you just sat there and smiled. I wonder what she would do if I was there. There will be no cheating in this marriage. If you cheat, you will leave. No excuses, no mercy, goodbye." "Connie, she just hugged me," I said. "There's no reason for you to be so mad. Everyone I work with sees my wedding ring. Everyone knows that I'm married and very happy. Plus, Serena saw you around. If only there was something between us, I doubt she would come and hug me right in front of you." "Lustful women remain lustful," she hissed. "And you must make it clear to your people that you are married, and you need to let them know that your wife takes her marriage vows very seriously. I hear and read about this shit all the time. People in the media and entertainment industry just think they're on a different level from the rest of the damn world." I pushed past her and into the house, so our neighbors wouldn't listen to the rest of her tirade. "And you need to know, this bitch is fake as day. She probably has breast implants, butt implants, a nose job, collagen in her lips, reshaped cheekbones, whitened teeth, bleached hair and leg extensions." She snapped. "There's nothing real about her. Hell, I'd look like that too if they did all that stuff on me." "Leg lengthening?" I said, shaking my head. "I thought it was an exercise." "Don't be stupid, Rob," she said. "You know how they do it. This bitch is almost 6 feet tall and bony. She has almost no hips, but she has a bubble butt. It's not natural." "Connie, she played volleyball and basketball in college," I said. "That's why she's tall and skinny. It's all exercise." Connie looked at me as if I were on a slide and she was looking at me under a microscope. "This is a good time to stop and introduce the participants in our little drama. My name's Rob, short for Robin Delgado. I'm a photographer. I started as a child with a cheap Kodak camera that my parents bought for me as a Christmas present. I won many photography competitions as a teenager and knew that when it came time to think about college, photography would be my major. Throughout school, I didn't join any clubs or teams, but I was at every major school event. I needed to be there to take pictures. It was the same at the parties I went to. I've never been there with a girlfriend or friends, but I've always been there with a camera. There was one girl, Melissa Mulligan, who thought I was cute. She often asked me why I didn't participate in anything. She found it strange that instead of joining in and experiencing life, I preferred to watch it from the sidelines. I've thought about this often and only recently found the answer to her question. It's not that I didn't participate in life. Each of us has a part to play in the great drama that is life. My role in this drama is to photograph events so that people who could not attend can see great, beautiful, or tragic events with their own eyes. In my particular case, I noticed that life is messy and ugly, even at the best of times. And even when you have those truly beautiful or sublime moments, they look better to me when they're focused through my camera lens. Everything just looks better through the lens. My wife Connie and I have only been married 2 years. I am the owner of my own agency. I have several photographers on staff, and we shoot everything from fashion to magazine work. Often models or artists who are concerned about their image will tell us what parties or events they are going to. They, or their managers, hire us to photograph them at these events, because we take hundreds of pictures and let them control what photos we publish in magazines or newspapers. This way, only photos that represent them well are visible. On the other hand, when stars are on the decline, magazines often hire us, instead of their staff photographers, to get pictures of the stars that show them in an unfavorable light, like photos of Lindsay Blowhard when she's drunk or high, which helps a magazine or newspaper sell a certain story. Sometimes celebrities and magazines bid for my work. The magazine wants bad photos, I get them, and the star or their management finds out and pays me more than the magazine offered to make sure the photos never see the light of day. This morning's shoot was for a magazine ad. One of the models, Serena Vaskova, a nearly 6-foot Russian beauty, as mentioned, hugged me after the shoot ended. I've worked with Serena a couple of times now, and she's a really nice girl. Her strong Russian accent makes her seem exotic. Her pale, gray eyes and long legs don't hurt either. Despite everything Serena calls her a bitch, Serena is rumored to be a 23-year-old virgin. She's also on her way to becoming a bona fide supermodel. She does everything right and ends up on a lot of covers. It also doesn't hurt that he often asks me for his filming. I seriously wouldn't mind using her influence to get bigger and better assignments, but that won't happen if Connie makes a scene every time we work together. Just stay away from that bitch, Connie says. Promise me this? She calmed down, so I tried to reason with her. Okay, Connie, I said. If you don't care about us losing the cruise I wanted to give us for Christmas, it'll be your way. What do you mean? She looks at me with curiosity. Serena asks me often, I began. She's on her way to the top as a model. She makes an incredible amount of money and has a big say in when, where, and how everything is done on her shoots. If she asks me personally, I get more money, which means I can buy more and better things for you. I mean, we're married. Long after Serena's career as Flavor of the Month is over, we'll still be together. But if I'm on set with her, even though you saw me today, there are always a lot of other people bothering you. I'll just stop working with her. There were a lot of people there, she said in a hesitant voice. There were 3 hairdressers, 2 makeup artists, and their assistants. Her agent was there, her representative, her personal assistant, all my assistants, the client's representative, the fashion designer and his assistants, and 4 other models, all of whom also had their employees, I said. I think there must have been about 50 people there, and there always is. Okay, she said reluctantly, but I don't want you to ever be alone with that bitch. I'm still not happy about it because you're too obsessed with your cameras and your career to notice the little things. But I'm a woman, and I know how women think. And this girl wants you. I promise, I said. I will never allow myself to be in a situation where Serena and I are alone. Now, why don't you make us a nice brunch while I sit on the computer and edit the bitch's photos so I can sell them and make us some money? I went to my office and sat down at the computer. The equipment I had at home was the same editorial software I used in the office. It allowed me to work from home when I just didn't want to go to work. While I was working on photos from the morning shoot, a call came in on my iPhone. Rob, where are you? Asked the caller. I already told you that we need test shots as soon as possible. It was Frederic Bontemps, Serena's manager. I couldn't stand this guy. He was narcissistic, like them all. His French accent, which was also fake, irritated me beyond belief. I should never have let you take those photos. You're not famous enough, he said. You don't have enough history or portfolio. Now I have to reshoot the entire shoot. Fred, I said. He didn't like being called that. He preferred his name to be pronounced Friedrich. This only proved what an idiot he was, because by pronouncing it that way, his name was German. And there was not much love between the French and the Germans. However, it was all academic because it was fake. But I'm tired of his crap, so I decided to let him know. About Friedrich will wear out, he said sharply. I am French. Fred, the internet is a wonderful place, I said. If you know what to do, you can find out almost anything. Sometimes you can even find out why. Unfortunately, I couldn't find out why. Why what? He asked. Why would a guy born Fred Thompson in Corpus Christi, Texas, want to pretend to be a French modeling agent? You have a lot of pictures from your high school days. You were in the drama club, weren't you? I don't think your dad would like that. You're not cut out for football. They take sports very seriously in Texas, don't they? There was silence on the phone. I found a video of you in the musical Oklahoma. You were a damn good singer, Freddie. Also, why did you become Free Dick? I mean Frederick, which, by the way, I didn't find either. I also couldn't find any record of you actually going to college for a BA in art and fashion, which is hanging on your office wall, even when I looked up the college where your degree came from. You were actually listed there as a student, but you dropped out of study. It says you dropped out for financial reasons. My guess is that Dad didn't want to pay for your fashion education, but I could be wrong. What's the point? He asked slowly. I think you're going to tell everyone this, huh? No, I said. I'm a firm believer in live and let live for Derek. With everything I've heard, degree or not, accent or not, you're very good at what you do. Me too. At least I try to be. All I want from you is to let me do my job. Believe it or not, I'm working on test shots even as we speak. I told you that you would have test shots to show your client by the first morning, didn't I? Yes, he said. A little bit of Texas slipped through when he said that. Actually, you'll have test shots by this evening, I said. In fact, I'll send you the first 5 pictures now. I clicked some files on the computer and sent them to his office. We were both silent for a few minutes, and then he said, "Oh my God." "Hey, Friedrich, that didn't sound French," I said. "These photos are great," he said. I don't know how, but wait. While I was waiting, he was doing something at his desk. I don't know. It's not because of the lighting in the photos, but Serena has never looked better before. Whatever you do, it works. I would really appreciate it if you could give me the rest of the pictures on time. I won't bother you anymore. And Rob, he said, what you said earlier about keeping my secret, thank you. A little later, after I put the phone down, there was a knock on my office door. I opened it, and Connie walked in with her best friend, Jessica. "Where's lunch?" I asked. "Oh, that," Connie said. "I was too busy talking to Jess. Why didn't you tell me about the party tonight at the Dalton Hotel?" "Because I'm not going there," I said. "I had 2 parties planned for tonight. I decided to shoot the one in Buc-Cadillac. There will be a couple of really important politicians at that party. History could be made there tonight and—" "You mean one of those moneybags might actually tell the truth?" she interrupted sharply. "It would be historic, but unlikely. They're all lying, Rob. You should switch and film another party. Jason Hamster will be there. You know how much I adore him. I'd really like to get his pictures. Remember what I told you, when did we get married?" "Sorry, honey, but I already assigned Ed to film that party," I said. "My things are already at another hotel. Changing assignments so close to the event would be chaos." Her face fell. "Next time I get the chance, I will not only take photos for you, I will take you with me and introduce you," I promised her. She returned and spent the rest of the day chatting with Jessica. I never got lunch. Connie. "God, you're so lucky," Jessica said admiringly. "Your husband is so sexy." We just watched as Rob loaded a couple of camera bags into the trunk of his Mustang and headed off to a boring party at a boring hotel. "And his work is so cool," she continued. "Just think, he did a fashion shoot with Serena Voskova this morning and a party with important politicians tonight." "It's not that great," I said. That bitch had been pestering him all morning. Every time she got the chance, she would wrap herself around him like a cheap suit. And she even dared to look at me with her big gray eyes, like some crazy cat marking his territory. "But Rob loves you, stupid," Jessica said. "He would never cheat on you." "Yes, I know that," I muttered. But she pissed me off. Also, if he really loved me, he would have arranged for me to see Jason Hamster. Now this man is the sexiest thing in the world. "I don't know," Jessica said. "He seems a little fruity to me. He looks like the kind of guy who would dump you at the first problem. I can imagine you two fighting over each other's makeup use. What I can't imagine is you two growing old together. Or he'll hug you and make you feel safe. And let's face it, Rob is dad material. I just don't see Jason Hamster in the role." "Well, you're right on all counts," I said. "Besides, Jason doesn't like me in a really serious way. That's just a fantasy. But you know Jason Hamster is my backup card, right?" "What do you mean your spare card?" she asked. "When Rob and I first started dating, we exchanged fantasies about people. He told me who his dream woman was, and I told him who my dream man was. We laughed about it. I told him that if he ever met Eva Mendes, he can have sex with her in peace, and if I ever meet Jason Hamster, he has no right to be offended by me." Jessica and I laughed for a while, and then she suddenly jumped up. "Let's go," she said. We returned to Rob's office. She opened the door and looked at the desk in front of the computer. She held up her photographic pass. "Yes, I know," I said. "Rob goes to all the cool places. I'll ask him if you can take this pass as a souvenir if you want. Sometimes they need to be returned, even if they have not been used." "You don't understand, do you?" she asked. "There is no photo or name on this pass. Anyone who works as a photographer for RDI Media can use this pass. You could go to a party and at least see Jason Hamster in person. Who knows, you might even get to meet him." When she smiled at me, I felt like I had been struck by lightning. This will definitely work. I knew all of Rob's photographers and most of his staff. So once I get to the party, if there are questions, I'll just hang around with them for a while. Maybe I'll even just hang out with them until Jason shows up, if at all. Rob was working at another party anyway, so he'll never know I did it. And he usually gets back quite late for these events because he has to make sure he gets every shot possible and then make sure all his equipment is in place. "I'll do it," I said. Jessica's face lit up. "Be sure to tell me what happened," she said. "I better go home and cook dinner for my unglamorous plumber husband, have fun rubbing shoulders with the rich and famous." I called my hairdresser and told him I had an emergency. I told her that I needed my hair and makeup urgently. When I told her why, she agreed to take care of me in exchange for me telling everyone I met where I did it. I grabbed my newest, fanciest shoes and a new little black dress that I had never worn before and headed towards her salon. 2 hours later, I presented my invitation card at the hotel and was escorted into the main hall where the party was taking place. As soon as I showed my photographer's pass, the security personnel and employees simply stopped paying attention to me. I noticed that, unlike other guests who were told where they could and could not be, I was simply ignored. At this type of event, as I understand it, there were 3 groups of people. There were unknown guests who were either rich, had won a competition, or worked for one of the sponsoring companies. These people served as background. Their goal is to fill the room and make it seem like everyone would want to be here. They had restrictions on what they could do and where they could go. The second group are really famous people. They were the ones who made coming to the event special. There were no restrictions on them, and they received VIP treatment. And finally, there were the employees and members of the maintenance staff. This is where they thought I belonged. We were only here to work. We could go anywhere and do whatever we needed to do to get our jobs done. I walked up and said hello to Rob's lead photographer at the party. I've known Ed since I started dating Rob. He was an older man and a very good photographer, but he just didn't have Rob's gift. Ed, as I said, is a very good photographer, but Rob is an artist. I spent an hour or so with Ed and his team until the place started to fill up, then I started chatting. In the second hour of my stay, my first hour of working with guests, I met many people. There are people. It was easy to spot when a celebrity or other well-known person entered the venue because they were immediately bombarded with photographers and kept getting cameras in their faces throughout the night. I saw several people whom I regularly watched on TV, but they were not interesting to me. I came with one purpose. All I wanted was to see Jason Hamster. Getting an autograph or being able to talk to him was more than I had hoped for. However, I had a bad experience. I looked over my shoulder and saw a large crowd of people gathered around one person. When I looked closer to see who it was, I met Serena Voskova's gaze. Somehow I should have known she would be here. She was surrounded by reporters and even a couple of photographers. Strangely, I noticed that Ed was not among them, and given Serena's rising status, he should have been there. However, I noticed one of his assistants. Then it seemed to me that Ed agreed with me. This bitch just wasn't worth my time. After some time, the crowd around her dispersed as other stars entered the hall. She was soon left with a small group of people who continued to follow her and try to talk to her. I kept my eyes on the door, waiting for Jason to appear, and forgot about Serena when I heard her voice behind me. "Are they lying to me?" she asked with a strong Russian accent. I turned around to face her and had to admit that the bitch was beautiful. Whoever her surgeon was did a very good job. Even standing face to face, I could not see any signs of surgery or scars. Her damn face looked extremely natural. Her breasts, too. Looking down at her, I almost believed that she was naturally so tall. I hated this bitch even more. I'm sure they're all lying to you, I snorted, not understanding what she was talking about. So, Rob really won't be at this party? She asked. Really, Rob won't be at this party, I said, roughly imitating her accent. Then why are you here? She asked. Before she could finish her impudent question, a noise was heard from the door. I turned around and my jaw dropped as Jason Hamsker walked through in the flesh. Jason, unlike the other men in the room, was not wearing a suit. He was wearing a long hockey jersey with his own name on the back. Everyone knew Jason was Canadian, and all Canadians love hockey, except those who don't. His hockey jersey was decorated with rhinestones and it sparkled and glittered. Jason also wore his signature low-waist pants. He wore pants like teenagers downtown. The leg of his pants hung near his knees, forcing him to walk like a penguin that needed to go to the toilet. The way he walked with his toes spread and wobbled from side to side, his arms and hands made all sorts of fake street signs, and he struck a variety of poses as if he were Madonna or at least a model on the runway. My heart pounded in my chest just seeing him. He pressed his lips together, blowing kisses everywhere and smiling. Yo, you understand? You know what I'm talking about, guys, he said as he walked. Unfortunately, no one understood what he was saying because he wasn't really saying anything. It seemed funny that a white guy from Canada who was too small and too weak to play hockey, he spoke like a black teenager from the inner city, but perhaps he was just so talented. Oh, please, Serena snorted. Don't tell me you're a Jason Hamsker fan? I simply nodded and she shook her head. Do you know him? I asked. She nodded her head. He tried to talk to me several times, she snorted. His people contacted my people. They thought a romance between us could generate a lot of publicity and make us both money. I stared at her, my eyes almost popping out of my head. Have you ever been together? I asked. Of course not, she snorted. I'm like any other girl. When I fall in love, I don't want Jason Hamsker, I want it with a man. She looked at me and smiled. Wait, she said. We'll wait a few minutes while the photographers move on to another person, and I'll introduce you. Suddenly, this bitch became my best friend. Maybe she's not so bad after all. At least she introduces me to Jason. This is much more than my husband could do. Serena, has Rob ever dated Jason Hamsker? I asked. Many times, she said. If we did a merger, I mean a fictional romance, we would have Rob take the photos. Rob also took some shots for Jason's CD cover. Wait, no, I was wrong. Rob edited the photos, but didn't take them. I'm sure you know what Rob thinks about Jason. He always laughs at him. Rob has his own nickname for Jason. He has? I said. I didn't know. They're probably friends, and Rob never told me. Rob is friends with a lot of people in the entertainment industry, she said. He is a very good photographer, and his photographs make us look good. So what's Rob's nickname for Jason? I asked again. It's a very affectionate nickname, she said. I wish I had a little nickname like that, but he just calls me Serena. So what does he call Jason? I asked again. Oh, she said. He calls him that little bitch. My eyes widened in shock. I don't know if it was because English wasn't her first language or if I was missing something, but it didn't sound like a pet name. Come on, she said. I'll introduce you. She grabbed my hand and pulled me through the crowd. Everyone seemed to give way to us when they saw her. Jason was looking out at the crowd and making faces like a teenager in front of a mirror as we approached him. He made gestures with his hands and nodded his head as if he were dancing to music that only he could hear. He looked up as Serena approached him and smiled. Serena didn't let go of my hand, and I felt electricity as we approached Jason. A spotlight was aimed at us. I was so nervous that I almost forgot to breathe. Shit, girl. I knew you couldn't resist me, he said. Up close, he was much lower than I expected. It was also much more fragile. He looked like that child who was constantly being beaten. He looked like that kid who got beaten up in the suburbs among the nerds. If he ever showed up in the area where his videos were filmed, he would probably be beaten up by elementary school children. As the crowd around us dispersed, Serena dropped me in front of Jason. "Here's your biggest fan," she said. When she threw me in front of him, I felt like I was in one of those zoo scenes where the keeper opens the cage door and throws a big piece of meat to the hungry lions. I was neither a caretaker nor a lion. For some reason, I felt like a piece of meat. The second thing I noticed was that Serena had disappeared. "Okay, baby," he said, speaking into my chest. No, he wasn't rude. Such was his height. "Let's talk about you," he said. "What do you like most about me?" I felt that electricity again and noticed Jason holding my hand. A couple of photographers took our pictures. "I love being connected with my fans," he said. Before I knew it, he led me out of the party hall and into one of the rooms on the sides. His huge bodyguards followed us at a considerable distance. The room we found ourselves in was beautiful. I remembered Rob telling me about the interview rooms they used at some events. They were used when a star promised an exclusive interview with a reporter or writer. Sometimes a photographer was with them. Then I noticed that even the bodyguards weren't in the room with us. It was just Jason and me. He continued to talk to me, even as he sat me down on the elegant sofa next to him. He sat very close to me. He kept stroking my arm, and then the next. Thing I knew, he was stroking my shoulder. He kept talking to me and telling me how hard his life was, and how no one really understood him as an artist. He talked about how he wanted to overcome the limitations of his art and create music that would be considered the next generation of classical music. He said that he wanted to make sure that in 200 years people would remember Bach, Beethoven, and Hamster. I didn't even notice how his hand moved from my shoulder to my chest. I knew it was wrong to let him touch me, but it was Jason Hamsker. Damn it, he could do whatever he wanted to me. I was sure Rob would understand. Jason put his hand under my dress, and strangely, there were no goosebumps. I didn't dream about my husband the way I dreamed about Jason, but if Rob touched my chest or even my leg, I was ready to have sex with him right away. I then realized that I had to stop him, but I didn't. Ron will never know anyway. He started talking about his new song, "I Think About You," while making love to her, and even sang it a little while he spread my legs. I fainted. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. It's funny, but I don't even remember being sexually aroused. I think I was actually I was so overwhelmed by meeting Jason that I didn't even have a chance to say no. The thought of saying no didn't even cross my mind. In fact, I didn't even realize we had sex. It probably only lasted a minute. Maybe that should be the title of his new CD, Minute Man. "Damn, girl," he said. It was cool. Then I realized that I had slept with Jason Hamsker. I had a lot of thoughts running through my head. I was a fool. I didn't think about it while he was doing it because I was so stunned. I won't be able to describe it to Jessica or my kids when I have them. Damn, I thought. Maybe I can get him to do it again. I looked down and almost laughed when I saw how little dignity he had. Then I remembered that I didn't really feel anything. I thought about it again and wondered if what he did could even compare to what Rob gives me 4 or 5 times a week. On a purely sexual scale, it was nothing. The only thing that made this even remotely interesting was the fact that I had just had sex with Jason Hamsker. "Can I have your number, baby?" he asked. I started to get irritated by the sound of his voice. His voice was too high and nasal. "What?" I asked. "Can I get your number so I can call you? You can be my little bitch in Michigan. What's your name, baby?" he asked. "Connie Delgado," I said. As soon as I said this, I began to realize that he was not at all what I had imagined. I also didn't like how he called me a bitch. "Did you say Delgado?" He shuddered as he sat up. My eyes widened when he said that because all traces of his accent disappeared. "Did you say Delgado?" he asked again. "Are you somehow related to Robin Delgado, the photographer?" "I'm his wife," I mumbled. "Oh, damn," he said. His English was perfect. All the pretense of streetness has disappeared. "You probably shouldn't tell him that," he said. "Oh, damn," he repeated. Rob is a friend of mine. He's done the covers for every CD I've ever gone platinum. It wouldn't be a good thing to be on the bad side with him. Some of the concepts he's developed for my covers are like art. We need to keep it real. Secret. Why did you even do this? He asked. Then he slapped his forehead as if a light bulb had suddenly gone on. It was that tall Russian giraffe, wasn't it? I knew that bitch didn't love me. These Russian women just don't like blacks, he said. But, Jason, I began cautiously. You're not black. Whatever, he said. He took his phone out of his pocket, pressed one button, and two large, muscular bodyguards opened the door. Get me out of here, he said. The bodyguards looked at each other in bewilderment. Ah, guys, get me out of this mess, he said. We need to hurry home before this gets serious. The officials grabbed him by one hand and dragged him out of the room. They looked at me as if I were some kind of threat to him. When I returned to the main room, where the party was still in full swing, I began to look for a way out. Before I reached the middle of the hall, Serena stood in front of me. How was it? She asked. Nothing happened, I blurted out. She grinned and nodded. You just spilled milk on your dress, right? She asked. Have you ever... I started. She looked at me as if I was stupid. I'm a virgin, she said. I didn't want my first time to be with that troll. When I do, it will be with someone worthwhile, someone I love. I'll rush home to tell him my side of the story before you get to him, I said. I tried to walk past her, but she blocked my path. You don't have to rush for me, she said. Maybe you can sleep with a couple more celebrities. Anyway, I'm not going to tell him. I can't afford it for several reasons. I just looked at her. My manager is Frenchman Frédéric Bontemps. He saw the test shots we took today and said I've never looked better in my life. I need Rob to keep taking pictures of me. Even the Frenchman says he's getting the best out of me. What other photographers can't? People tend to shoot the messenger. So if I tell Rob what you did, I might lose the photographer. You don't have to worry about me. I can't guarantee the same regarding everyone else here. Also, I can't guarantee the photos of you and Jason that were taken when I introduced you. Good luck. You'll need it. I looked around the room as she turned and left. The party continued in full swing and was likely to last until midnight. It was only 10. I left the building and went home. As soon as I got home, for some reason, perhaps out of guilt, I started drinking. It was all that Russian bitch's fault. I started the day hating her. She flew into the shoot in the morning as if she were some kind of Russian princess. She ignored all the stylists who were waiting for her and sat down to start talking to Rob. Apparently, she thought I was one of Rob's assistants because she didn't even notice me until she tried to send me out to get coffee. Rob then told her who I was. Every time she changed outfits, she ignored the stylists and designers and came up and asked Rob what he thought about her appearance. Finally, when the shooting ended, she came up and brazenly wrapped her body around my husband while I was sitting next to him. She knew who I was and still wrapped herself around him. It was like watching a cat in heat. And when I got to the damn party, she introduced me to Jason Hamsker. Since she had a past with him, I'm sure she knew what a bastard he was. The feeling of being thrown to the lions was more than justified. I really believe she did it on purpose. Vodka seemed to help me understand Russians better. Serena told me a couple of reasons why she wouldn't give me away, but she only gave me one of them. Vodka cleared everything up. Serena didn't deceive me, but she hid the most important reason. She couldn't tell Rob, not because she was afraid of losing the photographer. The bitch didn't want to lose Rob. It was in front of me the whole time. Serena was in love with my damn husband. She didn't want to tell him about me because if he reacted the way she said, he wouldn't want anything to do with her, and she wanted to pick up the pieces after my failure. It was clear howdy. The reason Rob, he said, pulled things out of her that no one else could was because, whether he knew it or not, he inspired her. The light in her eyes came from the fact that the bitch loved him. That's why she was constantly flirting and approaching him to see if he liked the clothes she wore for pictures. As I sat and sipped my drink, I thought about all my mistakes that day. For most of the time Rob and I were together, I heard how spoiled and childish celebrities could be. He told me time after time that their attitude was spoiled and they were not like ordinary people. He also told me that they are not real people. There is always something missing in them. They look more like caricatures than real people. Then I thought about many things. Rob dated Eva Mendes several times, according to Serena. Serena was sure that Rob would never start anything with her if given the opportunity. The biggest blow for me was that Rob rejected Serena herself. I was shocked that he turned down one of the most beautiful women in the world and instead told her how beautiful he thought I was. He loved me so much, and I just spread my legs and slept with Jason Hamsker without thinking about him. Jason Hamsker slept with me and called me available, then practically ran out of the room when he found out I was married to Rob. He was more worried about losing Rob as a photographer than about how I was feeling. He didn't even give me a minute of attention. It was as if I was nothing. Despite all the damn songs he muttered about true love and sacrifice, Jason Hamster was a bastard. Rob was much better in every way than Jason Hamster will ever be. Jessica was right all along. I don't know if I was actually drunk, but I fell unconscious. Slave and emergency call from Ed made a terrible evening even worse. Ed's wife was pregnant, and just before the party he was filming was about to start, she left to give birth. He called me, and I told him to leave the guys there, and that once all the guests arrived at the party I was photographing, I would get in my Mustang and drive over there to get some special shots of all the important guests at the party he illuminated. He thanked me and ran off to meet his wife and her parents at the hospital. Ed was a good guy. If I worked for someone and Connie gave birth, I would run out of there like crazy. I would let my colleagues on the ground know what was going on, and after that, let whatever happen. If I got fired for trying to be present for the birth of my child, then whoever I worked for didn't deserve me. What bothered me the most, however, was the need to divide attention. The two parties, although separated by only 3 miles in actual distance, could not have been further apart in tone or influence. On the one hand, you have a bunch of oversized, PR-oriented actors, models, and musicians who are the complete focus of public attention at the moment. On the other hand, you have politicians and driving forces that can influence our lives in reality and will continue to do so for decades to come through the laws and policies they support. One group before represents youth, energy, and fun, while the other group represents experience, wealth, and responsibility. When I hopped into my deep purple 2012 Mustang GT, I didn't think about the differences between the two groups. I thought about their similarities. Both groups loved publicity and seeing their photographs in newspapers and magazines. One band did it because publicity meant album sales or filled movie theater seats. Another group did this because publicity would bring them closer to election or re-election. In the end, I think they are the same. As I pulled up to the second hotel, I realized that I had left my photographer's pass for the event at home. I called Polly, who was working with Ed, and asked her to borrow a pass from one of the guys who was already inside. As long as it doesn't go out and needs a return, I'll be fine. She met me right at the door, and I laughed as I waved to the security guys. I knew the owner of the security company and probably could have gotten through without a pass. I quickly disappeared around the corner as I saw Serena getting out of her limousine and heading inside. For some reason, Serena fell in love with me, and I didn't want to encourage her. She's a really nice girl and actually nice, but I'm married. Besides, Serena has already given me enough trouble today. As soon as I entered, I slipped into the room we had prepared to store our equipment. I greeted all my men and found out how they were getting on. I told them that Ed, as usual, had planned everything thoroughly and they should continue doing what they were doing. I had another thought, however. Most of the photos they were going to take would be posed and prepared, just like all other photos from all other sources. I wanted to go out and take some pictures that were raw. I wanted to take photographs of stars in vulnerable moments. Most of them would probably be junk, but maybe a few of them would be gold. After about 20 minutes of working in the hall, I saw this bastard Jason Hamster with some short woman in a black dress. Her legs were strong but slender. There was something familiar about them. I didn't think about it at the time because I had taken pictures of so many different women that they all blurred together over time. I moved around the room to get a better angle and almost dropped the camera. Jason was talking to my wife, Connie. I didn't know what she was doing here or how she got here, but I was determined to find out. I started to get up and walk over to them to ask her what the hell she was doing here, but then I changed my mind. I was sure she just wanted to meet Jason, her idol. I put off imagining her with him because I wanted her to have her little fantasy about him. So often, when we idealize people, it is a great disappointment when it turns out that they are not the people we thought they were. I decided to keep taking pictures of them so that she would at least have some memories of meeting this bastard. He then led her out of the hall and into one of the interview rooms. My heart sank. I ran out of the building and walked around the side. I returned to the building as soon as I realized that the ballroom was not level with the ground. I found myself on the second-floor balcony and pointed the telephoto lens at the rooms on this side of the building. Some of the rooms were empty. Then I found them. I started filming. Jason put his hand on Connie's left breast and I got angry. Jason put his hand up Connie's skirt and she let him do it. He got up from the couch they were sitting on and stood between her legs, and she just sat there motionless. If her eyes were closed, I would have thought that she had been drugged with illegal substances. I don't know how I did it, but somehow I switched the camera to automatic mode. She kept clicking after 1 second, taking picture after picture as my heart broke. There was no doubt about what I was watching. I stood on that balcony and watched the end of my marriage. What really pissed me off was all the crap Connie said to me this morning about the hug from Serena. When Serena hugged me, she wrapped her arms around me because I didn't love her back. But now here is my loving wife, allowing this fake white chocolate klutz in his pants to have her. I knew that outside the door of the room would be Marco and Will, Jason's huge bodyguards. There was no way to get past these two former footballers. I also didn't have to make a scene at the party. This would be the fastest route to professional suicide. Most promoters and even the stars themselves prefer to avoid drama and scenes unless they need publicity. For someone who is supposed to be invisible, whose job is simply to take pictures, creating a scene would be unacceptable. The best solution was to just leave and figure out a way to get back at both of them without causing a scene. I took a few more pictures where I got close to Connie's face and then turned to walk away. Returning to the main hall, I went and talked to my people. I told them all that they were doing a great job and that we would meet at 2 a.m. in the office to review the pictures they had taken. By 4 in the morning, we'll have reviewed every photo taken at both parties and emailed them to the magazine that paid us for it. We will also sell some other pictures to various newspapers that either didn't have staff on site or didn't have the pictures like we did. I had 4 hours to do what I needed to do. I left the building and got into my Mustang. The roar of the engine calmed me. I drove home and grabbed enough clothes to last me a few days and got back in the car. I drove downtown to the building where I rented office space. I rented the entire 3rd floor. We had offices, several photo studios, a couple of meeting rooms, storage space, and a couple of editing studios, and we needed every square foot of that space. I already knew that within a few years, we would need our own building. One of the cool things was that during my carefree single days, I often lived in a small, ready-made room behind my office. There was a very comfortable sofa and a full bathroom with a shower and even a small kitchen in the space behind my personal office. Until I find a new apartment or condo, this should be enough. Connie and I were only married 2 years. When we got married, my business lawyer told me that it would be wise to enter into an agreement that, in the event of a divorce, would prevent Connie from getting any part of my business. It wasn't exactly a prenuptial agreement, but it worked. There was also the point that since we had only been together for 2 years, Connie wouldn't have received much in the way of support or child support, and we don't have children. Divorce would probably be very simple. I saw it more as, okay, that didn't work. You take your stuff, I'll take mine. One of us can take over the rent if we want to live there. It was nice meeting you. Bye-bye. The security guard in front of the building waved at me as I parked my Mustang in my spot. My spot was near the front of the building where the owners parked when they were in town. I had a great location because, renting the entire 3rd floor, I was one of their largest tenants. The security guard, Greg, was used to our unusual schedule. We came and went almost around the clock because the media worked around the clock. The internet meant we could sell photos all day long because it was always daytime somewhere in the world. As I stepped out of the elevator, my night staff looked up. Elsa, my office manager, who looked like she had just woken up, approached me with a cup of hot coffee. "I didn't expect you until 2, she said. "I didn't expect to be here either," I replied. "I'll be in my office for a while. I don't want to be disturbed. I need to edit and print some photos that I never expected to take." She looked at me and realized that I was upset. "Do you need something?" she asked. "Maybe a little more of this coffee every now and then," I said. "Oh yeah. Elsa, what's the biggest high-quality photo paper we have in stock that we can print on?" "I think we have some 18 by 24-inch glossy cardstock left over," she said. "Great, bring me some of this," I said. "How many sheets?" she asked. "As many as you can find," I said. "I need at least 10, but 20 would be better. If we don't have that much, then bring me whatever you have, and then move on to the next largest size." I worked alone in my office. I downloaded the photos of Connie's infidelity onto my computer, and then selected the most incriminating ones. I started with a few innocent shots of Connie standing in front of Jason, looking fascinated. Then I worked on a couple of shots where they both entered the room. I then used a series of their conversations, and finally I started working on shots of the act itself. There was a shot of Jason holding his hand on Connie's chest, and she allowed it. I superimposed a close-up of the hand on the chest below. The next shot showed his hand under her skirt, and Connie wide-eyed but not stopping him. The next shot showed him spreading her legs, and the last shot I used was of them during the act. I took one last sip of coffee and sent all the pictures to the main printer. The printer in my office wasn't big enough to print on sheets of that size. I went to the printer in the main office area, and I waited while the pictures were printed. I printed them in reverse order, so that if we ran out of large paper, the most incriminating pictures would be larger. When all the pictures were printed, I took them and left the building. It took almost 2 hours to process, select, edit, and print the pictures. I told Elsa that I would be back to help look through the pictures of the evening. I returned to the apartment, and I must admit I was still in shock. Maybe because the shock had not yet passed, but I did not feel overwhelming pain. I was icy calm. I think the prospect of buying a new car would be more stressful than the thought of the end of my marriage. I expected to find Connie in our bedroom and hoped that she would be asleep. 1 out of 2 wasn't too bad. In fact, it was closer to 0 out of 2. Connie was not in our bedroom, and although she was not conscious, she was not actually asleep. Most likely she was simply passed out from drinking, considering the almost empty bottle of vodka that was still in her hand. This raised a lot of questions for me. Was she drunk when she went into the room with Jason, or was she drinking to ease her guilt? I don't think it mattered to me anymore. I left her where she was and went to the bedroom to begin my plan. I got out a roll of duct tape and started putting squares of duct tape on the walls of our bedroom and along the hallway to the bathroom. Once all the pieces of tape were glued down, I took out a jar of pins and added a pin to each piece of tape. After that, I went back and threaded the pieces of fishing line to the pins. It looked like a very sparse but complex network of transparent plastic lines. It was almost like a spider's web all over the apartment. I went back into the living room and picked up Connie. I picked her up and carried her into our bedroom, covering her with a blanket. I then took all the photos I had printed and attached each one to the fishing line in a specific order. Right above the bed was a photo of her meeting her idol, Jason Hamsker. The photo was hung at eye level, so it was the first thing she saw when she woke up. She could walk around the house and go to the bathroom, where she would find the last photograph. In the last photo, I used a thick white marker to write her a message. It was very clear and consisted of just one word, so she would understand it even in her hungover state the next morning. I turned off the light as I walked back through the apartment, looking for anything else I could take with me. In the morning, I will call my lawyer and begin the divorce process. Connie. I was completely stunned when I woke up the next afternoon. The sun should have been shining on me through my window, but it wasn't. When I opened my eyes, I noticed the sunlight was shining on the bed next to me, but somehow it wasn't shining directly on me. I also noticed that I was in bed. I shouldn't have been in bed. The last thing I remember is that I was sitting on the floor in front of the sofa and drinking. How did I end up in bed? Rob must have put me to bed when he got home this morning. Then I noticed Rob wasn't there. It didn't make sense. Rob's work, like most others, had certain patterns. Template path was that after working the night's event, he would usually spend most of the night editing and selling shots, and then we would both sleep the next day. Not only was Rob not in bed with me, his side of the bed looked like no one had slept on it. The poor guy probably came home, saw me on the floor, put me to bed, and then went back to work. I smiled, even though my head was foggy and pounding. That bastard Jason would never do something like that. I don't know what attracted me to Jason Hamsker. He doesn't sound anything like his music or his videos. Looks like Rob was right. He's just not a real person. When I fully opened my eyes to get out of bed, I stared straight at the photograph hanging above the bed. Even as I considered the contents of the photo, I wondered how it got there and who hung it. The photo clearly showed me in my now ruined black dress, standing in front of Jason the previous evening. I had never seen myself in this dress before. If I had known that it was so tight and that it made me look so cheap, I would never have worn it. I tore off the photograph and then saw behind it, a little further away, another photograph. This one, Jason was holding my shoulder and moving to the side. When I stood up, I realized that I still couldn't stand, and that my hangover was much worse than I thought. I almost hit my head on the wall when I fell. I looked up, and there was another photo after the second one, and another one after it. I struggled to my feet and walked around the room, looking at each photograph and finding that each one was worse than the last. As I walked through a series of photographs along the corridor, I noticed that the perspective and angle had changed. Since the photographer could not shoot through a closed door, either the second photographer or the same one continued to photograph us from outside the room. In the middle of the hallway, I saw a few pictures of Jason and I sitting on this beautiful couch in the interview room. My heart sank and I realized what I was looking at. The only question in my mind was how far the photos went and how angry Rob was with me. By this point, it was obvious to me that Rob himself had taken the photos, even though he wasn't supposed to be at the party. When I went through the photos in the bathroom, I realized how well he knew me. Looking at the pictures of Jason doing to me what no married woman should ever allow any man other than her husband to do, I felt sick. The next photo was near the toilet and showed Jason spreading my legs. As soon as I threw up in the toilet, I saw the last photo. It was placed at eye level if a person were to hold their head near the toilet. It showed Jason having me and Rob using one of those white markers he used to highlight details in photos, wrote, "Goodbye." The shock of this message made me vomit again. What the hell did he mean by goodbye? I splashed my face with water. My head was still pounding, so I swallowed a couple of aspirins and brushed my head, to get rid of the taste of both alcohol and vomit. I called Rob's cell phone. He called and called. After the 10th call, I received a message that the number had been changed and no more information about this number was available. Then I realized that Rob was taking the situation seriously. He didn't give out his personal number to very many people. Several times when I looked at his contact list, I laughed because I had 3 times as many people in my contact list as Rob. Rob had hundreds of clients, but most of them only had his office number. There were less than 10 people on his personal phone list. He preferred that clients and people he worked with contact him through his office. They called the office and were then connected to his personal phone. The list included me, our home number, Rob's mom, his dad, his sister, the office, and a couple of Rob's best friends. Ron probably called the phone company, changed the number, and then called his several contacts and told them the new number. It probably only took him a few minutes to do it. I called the office and spoke with the secretary. I asked Rob and was asked the purpose of the call. Any of Rob's office managers would have recognized my voice, so I was lucky. I told the woman that the call was personal. She asked for my name and number and said someone would call me back. Before she hung up, I asked to speak to Elsa. I was told that Elsa was working last night, but I could talk to Susan. Sue was always warm towards me, so I told the woman it would be okay, and I was transferred. When Susan got in touch, I told her who I was, and there was a long pause before she asked what she could do for me. I told her I wanted to talk to Rob and that I'd be downstairs soon. "Listen, Connie," she said. "I know there's something going on between you and Rob right now. I'm married too, and I know every relationship has problems from time to time. I don't know what's going on between you, and I'm not taking sides. Except mine. I'm paid to do what Rob wants. I was told not to connect you with him under any circumstances. He doesn't want to talk to you. He went so far as to order security not to let you into the third floor of the building. They posted 2 of our guards at the elevator. You won't be allowed to leave the elevator on the 3rd floor. He can't ban you from the entire building yet because he doesn't own it, but he's on very good terms with the owners. Even if you could get into the building, Rob isn't here right now. They were all working late on pictures from last night's parties. He took a nap for a couple of hours and left right when I arrived this morning. I know he had a meeting about the shots he took yesterday for Serena and other models. I think he had other meetings. Don't be upset, but I think one of them was with Jeff. Take care, Connie, and I hope you have everything will be all right. Then I realized that this was very serious. Jeff Goldblum was Rob's lawyer. He came up with a prenuptial agreement, which I signed. This was not a prenuptial agreement in the legal sense of the word. It didn't say what each of us would get in the event of a divorce, but it did make it clear. It is clear that Rob owned and founded his own business long before we met, and that in the event of a divorce, I cannot claim any part of Rob's business. I could still claim a portion of Rob's salary or his personal bills, but the business was out of reach. Jeff was a business lawyer, not a divorce lawyer, so Rob meeting him could mean anything. I felt like I was about to cry, so I called Jessica. She was at my door in less than 10 minutes. As soon as I opened the door, she started asking me stupid questions about that idiot Jason Hamsker. Have you met him? How is he really? Did you get his autograph? Do you have his photos? She asked, all in one breath without pausing. Oh, damn, you look terrible, she said. So what went wrong? If you're not happy, then you obviously didn't meet him. What happened? Can you stop for a minute so I can fucking say something? I answered sharply. She just nodded her head. I actually went to the party, I said, and that bitch Serena Vaskova was there. She introduced me. Wait, Jessica exclaimed in shock. Have you spent time with Serena Vaskova? Are you, like, friends or something? No, I said, but she's not as terrible as I thought. Anyway, she introduced me to Jason and... You're kidding me? Jessica exclaimed. No, I interrupted her. He's not at all what he looks like on TV or in the videos. First of all, he's only about 5 feet tall. He's a fucking troll. His accent is fake. Everything about him is fake, and he's got a small one in his pants. Wow, she said. You didn't do what I think you did? I nodded and started crying. That's why you're upset. You feel guilty, don't you? She said. Connie, as your best friend, please listen to me. I know you, like the rest of us, have heard that honesty is the best policy. Forget about this crap. This is complete bullshit. If Rob ever comes up and asks you about this, deny everything. I grabbed her shoulder and led her towards the corridor. What the hell does this all mean? She asked. When she started looking at the photos, her jaw dropped. You need to make sure Rob never sees these photos, she said. She walked up and down the hallway, taking photographs. When she got to the bathroom and saw the worst of them, she looked at me. You weren't kidding, she said. You actually slept with Jason Hamsker? How was that? It was like not having sex, I said. He called me approachable. When he found out I was Rob's wife, he was more worried about Rob stopping taking pictures of him than how it made me feel. He's not a street guy, and his accent is fake. He's a complete creep. Then you really need to make sure Rob doesn't find out, she said. Jessie, I said quietly. Yes, she smiled. Rob took those damn photos, I screamed. What do you think he meant that last one when he wrote goodbye? Since I woke up this morning, I couldn't contact him. He has changed his mobile number and people in his office are working for him. They wouldn't let me talk to him even if he were there. What about your agreement? She asked. What are you babbling about, Jess? I asked. You said you and Rob had an agreement. He could sleep with Eva Mendes and you could sleep with Jason Hamsker. Rob is a man of his word. You just need to remind him of that. How can I remind him of something when he won't talk to me? I asked. Then find someone he talks to and have them remind him, she said. It was actually not a completely stupid idea. I didn't have any better ones anyway. I needed to find the right person to do this. Jessica and I spent the rest of the day trying to figure out what to do. I was glad she was with me because I felt terrible and having someone to share my pain cut it in half. But Rob didn't waste any time either. The next morning, I received a call from a lawyer asking if I could meet with him about my divorce. He asked for my lawyer's number because he didn't want to meet with me without a lawyer present. He said that as long as I find a lawyer, he can send me copies of documents for review. Because it was a simple divorce, he thought that if I had a lawyer, the whole process could be completed and filed in court in a week, and in 6 months, 3 months, with the right judge, the whole thing could be over. He was waiting for my answer. Where is your office? I asked. He gave me the address and said he would be available all day. I got dressed and went to his office. I dressed modestly for the meeting. I just wore jeans and a blouse with the leather jacket that Rob loved so much. I was shown into his office and he stood up to shake my hand. He looked around as if he was expecting someone else. When he extended his hand to shake, I pulled my hand back, and as soon as I was within reach, I hit him as hard as I could. This is an attack, he complained. No, it wasn't an attack, I said. It was therapy. If you look in any medical journal, they will tell you that the way to treat people who are in shock or behaving irrationally is to give them a hard, stinging slap to the face. It helps reorder their brains so they start processing again. Information. Yes, she smiled. Rob took those damn photos, I screamed. What do you think he meant that last one when he wrote, goodbye? Since I woke up this morning, I couldn't contact him. He has changed his mobile number and people in his office are working for him. They wouldn't let me talk to him even if he were there. What about your agreement? She asked. What are you babbling about, Jess? I asked. You said you and Rob had an agreement. He could sleep with Eva Mendes, and you could sleep with Jason Hamsker. Rob is a man of his word. You just need to remind him of that. How can I remind him of something when he won't talk to me? I asked. Then find someone he talks to and have them remind him, she said. It was actually not a completely stupid idea. I didn't have any better ones anyway. I needed to find the right person to do this. Jessica and I spent the rest of the day trying to figure out what to do. I was glad she was with me because I felt terrible, and having someone to share my pain cut it in half. But Rob didn't waste any time either. The next morning, I received a call from a lawyer asking if I could meet with him about my divorce. He asked for my lawyer's number because he didn't want to meet with me without a lawyer present. He said that as long as I find a lawyer, he can send me copies of documents for review. Because it was a simple divorce, he thought that if I had a lawyer, the whole process could be completed and filed in court in a week, and in 6 months, 3 months with the right judge, the whole thing could be over. He was waiting for my answer. Where is your office? I asked. He gave me the address and said he would be available all day. I got dressed and went to his office. I dressed modestly for the meeting. I just wore jeans and a blouse with the leather jacket that Rob loved so much. I was shown into his office and he stood up to shake my hand. He looked around as if he was expecting someone else. When he extended his hand to shake, I pulled my hand back and, as soon as I was within reach, I hit him as hard as I could. This is an attack, he complained. No, it wasn't an attack, I said. It was therapy. If you look in any medical journal, they will tell you that the way to treat people who are in shock or behaving irrationally is to give them a hard, stinging slap to the face. It helps reorder their brains, so they start processing again. Information. He looked at me like I was crazy, still holding his face where I hit him. "But I'm not crazy," he said carefully. "If you think I'm just going to leave and give Rob a divorce, you're wrong," I blurted out. "Rob is mine. I love him. My marriage is not over just because I made a terrible mistake. Besides, Rob has no grounds for divorce. We have an agreement." "What agreement?" he asked. "Have Rob call me and we can talk about it," I said. "Well, since you're here," he said, "can we at least discuss a settlement?" "There will be no settlement," I said, "so there's no point in discussing it." "Then I don't have to ask Rob to call you," he said. "Rob gave me his legal credentials and told me to handle the divorce. He's focusing on his career right now. In fact, he's about to go on a business trip. One of his clients got a big order and brought Rob to it. This could be the biggest thing he's ever done. It will take weeks to prepare, so he may be away for a long time. Also, he needs to find a new place to live, depending on what you decide to do with the apartment you're currently renting. Jeff thinks it's time for Rob, whether you two stay together or not, to buy a house. So leaving the apartment may be a good decision for him. Perhaps he can be persuaded, in exchange for a quick resolution of the issue, to pay the rest of the rent for you." "No deal," I said. "Once Rob and I sit down and talk things through, you'll be out of the game. There are some things you might want—" He started, but I walked out while he was talking. Afterwards, perhaps I should have listened to him. On the way home, I stopped at the grocery store to buy a few things for dinner and was surprised to find that all my credit cards had been declined. I went out to the car and called the bank from my mobile phone. It turned out that Rob had paid off all my credit cards and canceled them. Although the cards were in my name, they were linked to his accounts and were essentially his credit cards. I went to the bank. I decided that I would just write a check from the account and would use the cash for my purchases while Rob recovered. This is where I came to my senses. All of our accounts were actually Rob's accounts, and he removed my name from all of them. I only had about $100 in cash, and it wouldn't last long. When I got home, I flipped through the phone book and found a lawyer. The first lawyer I called took my case on retaliation terms. If I stay married, Rob will have to pay for his services. If I get divorced, I will pay his fee from my settlement. We called Rob's lawyer again and made an appointment. Rob's lawyer was insufferable. In a matter of hours, he went from, "I'll be here all day," to, the earliest he could get a meeting was next week. He also arranged for a copy of the divorce papers to be sent to my lawyer. My lawyer looked at me and started shaking his head. "If this goes on too long, you'll have to get a job to pay me," he said. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "You haven't been together long, and you don't have children," he said. "Most judges won't give you much anyway. Your husband is filing for divorce on grounds of infidelity and claims he has photographic evidence. At the same time, he appears to have an agreement signed by you that does not allow you to receive what, or from, his business. He seems to reinvest most of the business income back into the business and pays himself a small salary. You are unlikely to get anything out of it. In fact, when he paid off your credit card in the morning, the amount that he paid out was more than you could have expected to receive in settlement. You seem to spend a lot on clothes, don't you?" "What are you trying to say?" I asked. "If the divorce goes this way, you'll probably have to pay your husband," he said. "And you're broke. You need to look for a job right away, or at least accept this settlement. That'll give you $25,000 in cash, and you can stay in the apartment until the end of the lease." "And how much do your terms cost?" I asked. "At $200 an hour, you already owe me about $1,000, he grinned. "That will leave you with $24,000 if you sign it now. I'm in no hurry. We can fight to the end." "Am I in a good position?" I asked. "Does he have photographs?" he asked. I nodded, and a tear rolled down my cheek. "If you really left for someone else, why are you trying to keep this one?" he asked. "Why don't you let him go and go get someone else?" "Because this one is the one I love," I said. "The other guy's just a creep, and he's famous." He shrugged and smiled a crooked smile. "If I sign the papers, can I still try to talk to my husband and talk him out of it, or try to get him back?" I asked. "Of course," he said. You can try to get him back until the last day of your life. Stranger things have happened. I signed the papers. Over the next few weeks, my life became hell. I found out that the judge had ordered our divorce and it would be final in 6 months. Rob never returned to the condo. He sent one of his assistants to collect the rest of his belongings. She only took Rob's clothes and personal belongings. When I asked her about the rest of his stuff, thinking I might argue over some of his stuff and Rob would have to come and pick it up in person, she just shrugged and said he'd buy new stuff. Then it got even worse. I started seeing little news reports and pictures on TV about Rob and Serena. Serena was chosen for both the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue and the Victoria's Secret catalog. On both occasions, Rob took photographs. They've also been seen together too many times for it to be a coincidence. I always knew that she wanted my husband and would eventually get him. At the same time, Rob's business was doing very well. He had to turn down the opportunity to shoot the cover for Jason Hamsker's new CD. Jason had to shoot the cover very soon, and there just wasn't room in Rob's company schedule. Jason threw a fit and refused to work with anyone else, but Rob stood his ground. Everyone was wondering why Rob would turn down the job when he could have easily sent one of his employees to set everything up and then just jump in to shoot. But I knew. I knew Rob and Jason knew too, but neither of us talked about it. A couple of weeks later, I found out that I was pregnant. I demanded to see Rob. I asked my lawyer to contact the judge and stay the divorce until the baby was born. The meeting was not what I expected. There were 5 of us. I imagined it would be Rob and his lawyer and me and my lawyer. I thought we would kick the lawyers out of the room and he and I would just talk. I could tell Rob how sorry I am for what happened, but that I never stopped loving him and we could talk about getting back together for the sake of our child. That's not how it went at all. My lawyer began by pointing out that Rob would have to pay me child support beyond what had already been agreed upon, and that child support shouldn't be based on the salary Rob paid himself. It should be based on what he could afford to pay. Then Rob asked how we would even know the baby was his, and Serena quietly said that if the baby was Rob's, they wanted it. This amazed me because it left no doubt that they were together, and in her mind, my child would not change that. My lawyer reminded them that in our state, all children are legally recognized as products of marriage, whether they are the husband's biological children or not. Advocate Rob countered, saying that after the baby was born, a DNA test could prove that the baby was not Rob's, and then the divorce could continue as described. I would then have to arrange child support from the biological father, and Rob would be out of it. My lawyer objected by talking about new DNA tests that could be done without harming the baby before birth. If we can prove the baby is Rob's before it's born, then Rob will also have to support me during the pregnancy. I contacted my obstetrician and arranged a test, and we all waited for the answer. She told me that we need to wait at least another month to get the test done. I contacted Rob's lawyer and we all sat and waited. At this time, my lawyer insisted that we also contact any other possible fathers. I had no idea how to contact Jason. Serena actually helped me with this. She gave me the number for his management company. They were less than warm when I contacted them. Serena also gave me Jason's personal number. She had never used it and wasn't sure if it still worked, but I tried it. As soon as Jason answered the phone, I immediately knew it was him. "Hello, who is this?" he asked. "Jason, this is Connie," I said. "Do you remember me?" He had no idea who I was. I explained to him and he got angry at me. He blamed me for his problems with Rob. He said it was my fault that the cover of his new CD was bad. Then I told him that I was pregnant. He was actually happy. "Now, if you and Rob get back together, maybe he can take my damn cover," he said. "Jason, I'm calling because the baby might not be Rob's," I said. "I really hope that's true, but..." "Damn, girl, you should have used a condom," he said. "Jason, you don't understand," I said. "Maybe you..." All I heard was a beep. I tried to call the number back at least 10 times that day. By the 8th call, I was told that the number had been changed. I went back to calling his management and never got a call back. The next few weeks were unremarkable. I spent a lot of the money I got from Rob while getting the condo ready for the baby. The day of the test finally arrived, and surprisingly, Rob came to my doctor's office to be with me during the test. We had a chance to talk while I was waiting for the doctor. I was nervous as hell. Rob came over and took my hand. "I always wanted us to have children," he said. "Rob, it wasn't supposed to work out this way," I said. "We were still supposed to be married. We just have to make the best of what we have," he said. "Rob, it was a mistake. Jason Hamsker is a creep," I said. "I know," he said. "That's why I never introduced you to him. I was also a little jealous." "Why did you have to be jealous?" I asked. "I loved you so much," he said. "And Jason was kind of a fantasy for you. Remember that stupid deal we made?" He laughed. "Yes, you broke it," I said, with tears rolling down my cheeks. "Connie, it was never serious," he said. "When we got married, we made a vow to never cheat on each other. Whether it was with Jason or even Eva Mendes, it had to be just the two of us." Have you ever been with Eva Mendes?" I asked. "No," he smiled. "Why? I had you at home." Hearing him say that he would choose me over his ultimate fantasy made me feel like crap. Then the doctor came in. When I came out, about an hour later, he waited for me while the doctor wrote me a prescription for the minor pain I would experience for the next few days. "Connie, if it turns out that this is our child, we will talk and we will have to decide something," he said. "I want to be a very involved dad. If Jason turns out to be the lucky one, then I hope you have a happy life." My heart broke at that moment because I knew that if the baby was Jason's, I would never see my husband again. I also knew that Jason would never be a good father, and I would have to go through hell to get him to pay child support. The doctor said the results would come back in 3 days. The first of these 3 days I was on pins and needles. I had all sorts of daydreams and nightmares. I dreamed that the baby was Rob's and we got back together and lived happily ever after. I also dreamed that Rob's baby and Serena paid a hit squad $1 million to kill me. I woke up in a cold sweat after dreaming that a Russian guy was just about to stick an axe blade between my eyes. On the morning of the 3rd day, I woke up to the phone ringing. It was Jessica. "I just called to give you an update," she said. "Jess, I'll call you back," I said. "I need to call the doctor and get the results." "But Connie, you should hear this," she said enthusiastically when I hung up. Sometimes Jessica really got on my nerves. I wondered what she might consider as important as getting my baby's DNA test results. After endless waiting, I finally got through to the doctor. "We did the test several times," she said, "and there is no doubt about it. I hope you can rejoice." My heart jumped, and I started smiling. I knew Rob wouldn't let Serena even scratch the mother of her child, let alone kill her. And I was sure that, as he said, Rob wanted to be an involved father. That in itself meant that I might push Serena out of the picture. "The man who came to the office with you," the doctor continued, "under no circumstances can he be the father of the child." I dropped the phone and started crying. It shouldn't have been this way. Finally, after crying for about half an hour, I stood up and realized that I just needed to contact my lawyer. Jason was rich. I may not have loved him, but he was legally obligated to take care of me and his child. I hung up and started thinking about how I could convey this to him. Almost immediately, the phone rang again. I picked up the phone. "What the hell is wrong with you?" said Jessica. "Have you seen it yet?" "Saw what?" I asked. "Turn on the TV," she said. I walked over to the TV and turned it on. On the screen was a huge photograph of Jason Hamsker. Oh, damn, I thought. Probably his new CD is coming out today. The whole world will go into hamster fever. "From the world of entertainment comes this shocking news," the announcer said. Pop star rapper Jason Hamsker, a Canadian with a surprisingly urban style, was gunned down last night. Hamster was in the projects area on Detroit's east side, filming one of his stylized gangster rap videos when he walked off the set during a break. He decided to talk to several locals, who reacted poorly to his style of dress and manner of speaking. Hamsker's bodyguards were severely beaten. I was shocked. I switched to another channel. The world mourns the loss of Jason Hamsker, the announcer said. Finally, on another channel, I got a different perspective on the situation. The suspect, who faces life in prison, was interviewed while being escorted by police, the announcer said. The scene showed a black guy with long dreadlocks being escorted by police in handcuffs. The reporter put the microphone up to his face and started asking questions. Remorse? Hell no, I don't feel any remorse. How the hell was I supposed to know who he was? He came here with 2 big guards, walking around like he was Queen Elizabeth. But he was from here, said the reporter. He was from this area. All his songs said he was from here. Oh, damn, lady, you must be crazy. He wasn't from here. He was just some crazy white guy messing with us. So I finished him off. It was Jason Hamsker, the reporter said in tears. The announcer returned then. Hamsker left surprisingly little money to his family. It appears that Hamsker spent most of his money on low-rise pants and hockey jerseys. He had no money at all. In fact, Hamster was deeply in debt. The sheriff will be holding an auction of Hamsker's belongings to pay for his funeral. I then realized that I was absolutely in despair. I wiped down tables in the restaurant where I worked. It was hard to wipe down the damn table because the towel I had was bone dry. It was rush hour, and I needed a table for a couple of guys who had just walked in. I was dead tired from standing all day, and being able to earn some overtime would really help my budget. Most of the money I made went towards daycare for the child and food for both of us. I moved to a smaller place that I could afford and tried to rebuild my life. I didn't watch or follow any entertainment news because I was still trying to get over Rob and our divorce. A year passed and I haven't heard anything from him. I think somewhere deep down, I hoped that he would get tired of Serena, or vice versa, and he would come looking for me. Someone turned on the TV and I looked up when I heard the guys in the diner all sigh. "Damn! This woman, beautiful!" one of the guys shouted from behind me. I didn't have the heart to tell them that my husband had once abandoned her for me. Maybe it was vanity, but the realization that Rob loved me and just settled down with her made me feel happy. I listened to what the announcer was saying. Victoria's Secret model and Sports Illustrated cover girl Serena Vaskova announced her retirement today. The 24-year-old model is pregnant and set to marry her fiancé, celebrity photographer Robin Delgado. Vaskova told reporters that she won't miss her old life. That's it. What she ever wanted was to be a wife and mother. Delgado replied that Serena was the woman of his dreams and that they would grow old together and their children would be fat and happy. I went back to wiping the table, and suddenly dampening the rag was no longer a problem. The tears falling from my eyes did a great job of that. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one. 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 Listening to the next one.